Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot. So, I wanted to talk about this article that is out there, and actually several articles about the missing and disappeared scientists. I've been covering this now on two videos at least, and possibly on some guest videos where I guested. But the thing is that there's more to the story, and I am sort of making my way through it to determine what is really going on here because normally we do have people die. They are dying associated or disappearing associated with being whistleblowers, being people that have information that are going to go to court, etc. This kind of thing happens. These people get eliminated before they can testify. Then I have my whistleblowers, many of whom, and I thought I might go through a list and show you which ones were questionable deaths. So you've got questionable deaths of whistleblowers as well. You've got people that are silenced in various ways that we don't even know. And we've got people that testify once and never again, and things like that. So I just want to say that to start off with, I just wanted to bring up this piece of information, which has to do with exposing the SSP to the world, because this is clearly, as far as the scientists go, and reporting on them, even going back years, is indicating that there is a secret space program. That Congress, when they're asking if UIPs exist, are being actually disingenuous, or they're really stupid and completely not read in. So you can tell by Burkett more than anyone else that there's a great deal of truth to the story about the SSP secret space program. And there's more than one, of course. And so we're talking about people who come forward in one fashion or another, either on a video being interviewed or in a more clandestine way, or just talking to friends on the phone, and then suddenly they've disappeared. The list of disappeared, murdered, taken off planet, to underground bases, going black, et cetera, even to the Stars Academy, Hal Puthoff in that group, their To the Stars Academy organization went black. Okay. Now they say it's defunct or it's no longer in operation. That's always a way to hide something. So that actually is happening all the time. You're getting projects that are doing very well and then they disappear. And the reason they disappear is not for failure of exposition or whatever. It's just that they are being taken out. Okay. They're being taken under, going black, as we call it. I have many witnesses that have gone black. I could probably go through a list. Anyway, so then I want to talk about this one thing that has to do with um, this picture that I'm trying to paint here that has been going on for decades. And I can also open this Daily Mail website post and give you a look at that just for those people that probably haven't paid much attention. Because this actually could change everything. If they start revealing the real secret information that these people who have been working in Black projects for decades and suddenly have been disappearing, or even just disappeared years ago, and no one even paid attention until now. So that's part of the reason why I say this is a setup. This is someone in what I would like to believe is the white hat, Trump white hat military who has been tasked with giving information to uh, various media outlets about these scientists, dropping these, you know, tells, if you will, and doing them in a particular order as well. So that's worth paying attention to. This is not accidental. None of it's accidental, some suddenly coming forward after all this time, right around the time when Trump is supposed to be exposing the secret space program, or at least the reality of, aliens, which is the reason we have a secret space program is because we have dealings with aliens, pretty much. And if you go off planet, you're going to deal with aliens. And if even just sitting here, we've been invaded, hundreds of, maybe millions of times over our history here on this planet. And the books of Ashana detail the intervention and the genetic re-engineering of our species that's been going on for many millions of years. So I talk about all of this, and this is nothing new to my followers, people that have been following my work. But okay, so we want to look at the deeper picture that's been going on for decades. And the question is whether Trump and the White Hats are seeding this info out into the media on purpose to expose the secret space program to the world. According to William Tompkins, a Navy intel whistleblower who supposedly fell down the stairs shortly after calling me and telling me he would never speak to me again. He actually couldn't speak to me again after scheduling a show. It was on my schedule for 6 months, I believe, to a year. After scheduling the show to talk about the extent of child trafficking, the reptilian infestation is what I call it, or invasion on planet Earth. So they either killed him, strategically removed him to the underground, undersea bases, or are holding him at a black site. This indicates a war that's going on for disclosure between the Trump White Hat military and the dark magicians of NASA, who cater to the reptilian side of the SSP. And this story goes very deep. So, so I just want to highlight all of this, and then I want to bring up my website, which, as I look back over my website over the 20 years I've been doing this, I can see they've been attacking my videos nonstop. And some are just completely destroyed, and some are, it just needs so much work. So if there is a person out there who has a lot of attention to detail, who wants to do a rather laborious job of, we have the original videos, but of re-embedding them on the pages. And we have many, many pages of interviews. And in theory, I have something like, I don't know, maybe 3,000 interviews altogether, or videos, documentaries, interviews, whatever you want to call it. So that's worth knowing about. So basically, going to my website, and I'm going to go to an incognito. Okay, so this is my website, obviously, and feel free to donate if it occurs to you, or get on a regular. It's really a donation sort of contribution thing where you subscribe and become a member, and that is as low as $3 a month if you sign up yearly. So it's less than the price of a latte, basically. Uh, okay, so going back to this page and to try to show people, if I can. Okay, so I have many, many whistleblowers, obviously. I'm just going to go through a few to start out with, because what people don't know, or may not know, is you don't know when somebody's been killed. You don't know, because of the way they do it, the various ways in which they kill whistleblowers or eliminate them or silence them. Sometimes they do, like this woman, Amy Eskridge. she was harassed before she was killed. So she had a heads up somehow. Maybe they were hoping to silence her instead of kill her. That's always a possibility. So obviously, very smart, very talented, and lovely. Very sad to have someone like that killed, or anyone killed for that matter. So going back to my website, and sometimes you don't even know when people have been killed or disappeared. You just lose touch with them. And then if you don't investigate, you might not know that everyone else also lost touch with them. And that is a disappeared person as well. So just bringing this up, John Lear, he was seemed to be getting quite a bit older, but he also had some debilitating health issues that could also be a targeting. Clifford Stone died, mysterious circumstances, I believe. Norm Bergram, oh, excellent whistleblower, disappeared right after I interviewed him. He thought he was going to go public and become, well known, etc. And the opposite happened. He disappeared, and so did all his um, work, as far as we know. William Tompkins fell down the stairs, called me on the phone after being, again, setting up a date and a time to the night before the interview to say that he could never speak to me again. And then shortly thereafter, I heard that he fell down some stairs and died. So I don't think he did. I think he was probably taken off planet to a colony, or he was put under in an undersea base, an underground base, off-world city, whatever they decided to do with him, you know. Robert Duncan O'Finian, as far as I know, he's still alive. I haven't gotten word that he's not. Gordon Neville had some kind of toe injury, went into the hospital, spoke to me probably the night before he died, and suddenly died. Mysterious circumstances. Valery Uvarov, I believe, is still alive. He is a Russian. He was head of the Weird Desk, what we call the Weird Desk, that Ron Pandolfi was his counterpart in the CIA, who is retired but still alive. George Green died of mysterious circumstances, medical issues. Funny enough, George used to call me and would talk to me all the time about his wife and all her medical issues, but he's the one that died. She's, I believe, still alive to this day. Ashiana Dean, she's still alive, but she is very, very private and keeps a very low profile out there. So most people don't even know who she is, I would say. David Adair, he's alive, but he's no longer answering emails. I think there are a few people he's allowed to talk to. He did a number of very cutting edge interviews with me. Highly recommended. They're on my website. But he has actually gone quiet, at least as far as I know. And I've been told by some other people that they can't reach him. Okay, so Captain Mark Richards, of course, was thrown into prison for like 38 years or something crazy like that. He's still alive, but he has now disappeared. As far as I know, I think he's still in prison, but I'm trying to get verification of that. I simply don't know. I do know that I published a one sentence statement that he made about Three Eye Atlas, saying that we would use all possible force if necessary. It doesn't say that we needed to, but it does hint at the fact that Three Eye Atlas is not benign, which of course it's not. And I've talked about this quite a bit in articles and videos. Okay, so continuing through my website as it happens. Jordan Maxwell died. Again, strange circumstances, not sure exactly how or why he died. I think he wasn't that old. So we just don't know. Peter Paget is still alive. He worked for the Queen as an agent for, a zillion years. I imagine he's still involved with the royal family. It's a wonder that he didn't know that they were all pedophiles and reptilians because he was quite psychic. Michael Shrimpton is still alive. Jay Widener is still alive. Ole Damagard is still alive. And thank God these people are still alive. Miles Johnston is still alive. Kennedy, Jim Mars, who was listed here on this interview, he has passed, and again, don't know if what the circumstances were. Sometimes when people pass, they do come and visit me, and Jim Mars came and visited me after he passed. Richard Allen Miller is still alive. Simon Park's still alive. Gary McKinnon, still alive, but gone to ground. So he's not out there talking anymore. I got one of the most, I think, honest interviews he did when he was discovered and before he went to trial. So he was heavily leaned on him. When it was one of the first whistleblowers that really they tried to, oh, um, America tried to bring him over here to put him in a high security prison. His mother went to bat. They had lots of, they were sort of embedded in the music community in the UK, and that's quite a tight community. And she was able to get his situation mitigated through certain means. But his agreement is to not come forward since then. Jim Humble, I don't know if he's still alive, but he was heavily leaned on and targeted. Michael Prince is alive, but he got thrown into jail, prison for years, got involved in some nefarious stuff. And Max Spears is dead, and I was there on the phone actually at the time when he was dying with the people at the site. They were using black magic to try to keep him alive and were not successful. Anthony Sanchez is still alive, but has stopped talking about Project Leonid, which is a highly top secret, above top secret project. Nyara Isley is alive. She's out on the circuit talking from time to time. Bob Dean died. Again, we don't know what made him so sick for so long. Graham Hancock alive. Jordan Maxwell has passed. Pete Peterson, first they killed his wife and then they killed him. Brian O'Leary escaped the United States because they targeted him and then eventually gave him fast-acting cancer that died within a year of diagnosis. Leah Zagami is alive, and he changed sides, apparently. He's now working for the good guys. Not sure what his circumstances are. Richard C. Hoagland is still alive. Bill Hamilton, I think he passed on and I don't know why. Dan Sherman, he is still alive. Dan Burish is gone to ground, as they say, and they've really messed with my interviews with him, which tells me that there was a lot of good information there. We're trying to salvage these interviews, as I say, and trying to find someone who can fix our website, which is in a sad state of affairs. Michael St. Clair, don't know what happened to him. Gordon Neville, as I've told the story already. Ralph Ring, I think he's passed on. He was harassed by the military. Jim Sparks, don't know if he's still alive. Anyway, you get the idea. So that's. Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I wanted to talk about the passing of David Wilcock, or the fact that he might have faked his death and what the ramifications are of these scientists that have been coming out on a random, seemingly random or strange list, starting with McCasland, because there's a media leak going on and it's orchestrated. And I just want to make sure that people are up to speed on that because this is not a random list. If you had followed my work going back 20 years, then you would know that whistleblowers are dying on and off of some of the same causes, murder, disappearance, just going to ground, as we call it, going black, being part of projects that never, supposedly go anywhere, but actually do go black because they are successful and you think they're not. This is the kind of things that the deep state, aka the secret space program, aka SSP, for those who are uninitiated, so to speak, and don't know what has been going on right here on planet Earth. So the bottom line here is that we have two sort of organizations or two, we have two levels. We've got the secret space program that involves undersea, underground, going off planet to colonies, to moons of Saturn and Jupiter, to outside our solar system, and technology that does involve reverse engineering, UAPs, aka UFOs. And all of this contributes to a two layers of civilization going on Earth. One layer is the one that you see every day around you that has old technology that goes to planets or attempts to think about going to planets like Mars and the moon in a tin can with rocket fuel going back decades. Another part has to do with things like the Venture Star, the triangular craft, TR-3B, but that's actually old technology now. And so you're really having to understand that this leak is notifying people both on the upper level and the lower level, being surface Earth is the lower level, upper level of the secret space program, that they're letting people know, like the Congress people who did the UAP hearings, and basically are still wondering if we're still alone. That is all complete nonsense because even with the wonderful whistleblowers they brought forward, that's just the tip of the iceberg and they know it. So someone has gotten this brilliant idea to outline sort of the shape of the elephant in the room, which is the SSP, and what they're really looking into and the technology level that they have and have had for years and been working on. These scientists that are coming to the fore that are either being supposedly killed, disappeared, missing, etc., that we are actually seeing through these leaks that are making you aware that these people have either been in danger, been taken off planet, extracted. It's called, strategic extraction. Sometimes they call it clean extraction, depending on what they do. So there are teams in the military that are handling this disclosure. And this is not a disclosure in which they talk to you in a conference or, like the UAP hearing. This is disclosure to show you the real bones of this monster program that involves off-world technology, reverse engineered technology, and what we have our scientists working on and what they've been working on now. And this goes back really 60, 80 years, back to the paperclip scientists brought over by the Nazis, and also other Tesla tech and so on. So what they seem to be doing, and then you have to figure out who's doing this. Is it actually a war between the dark and the light, the dark magicians, the Satanists, who are heavily also embedded, the reptilians, Satanists, etc., in the secret space program, inside the underground bases, etc., and have been sabotaging our efforts to go to Mars and various other places, or the sort of more light side, what we call the light side, although I'm not sure how light it is, the reality that is actually using technology to go out beyond the stars, out where Solar Warden is patrolling our solar system and beyond. So if you don't understand what these whistleblowers, in essence, or these scientists that have been sort of exposed in a certain pattern to tell you this is what we've got, this is what our scientists have been working on. In other words, without putting it into words, it's basically a sort of diagram of where we are. And we're much further along on planet Earth, even on surface Earth, if they would just let out the technology. So my understanding from talking to whistleblowers is they don't want to wait anymore to expose the true technology, to keep humanity back in the dark ages, to things that could be solved tomorrow, med beds, the financial system, getting people out of debt, feeding the hungry, greening the deserts, everything you can imagine, we can do. Okay. And we could do back in the days of Skunk Works and Ben Rich, who said, we have the technology to take ET to the stars, that we have the technology to do everything you could imagine. And that was back in, I think, the 60s, but it might have been the 80s. So regardless, this is 2026, and this is becoming a huge year for disclosure. It's not necessarily being spelled out to you, but if you're smart enough to add the dots, to add the various scientists and what their specialties were, you can start to fill in the gaps of what the UAP hearings were talking about in terms of technology and what we actually have. Okay. So that matters because that is disclosure in a more important way than if a president sits up there and starts telling you this and that and the other. It's basically a diagram of where we're going and where we've been. And so if you pay close attention to the technologies, you'll see they're repeated with every scientist. Every scientist is ultimately dealing with reverse engineering UFOs and what came out of that. And it has to do with fusion engines, fusion plasma engines. In other words, all the technology that is in the secret space program, underground, undersea, being taken off planet, and it's in use right now. So it's not just that these scientists have been working in that area, but they have built taken the technology and converted into usable craft, etc., and going off planet. And you are not party to that, okay? And you are not benefiting from that, actually. So the secrecy has been killing us. It's been keeping us back in the Stone Age. And people like Elon Musk, who is a limited hangout, who is using old technology to talk about going to the stars when he knows damn well that we have technology that will jump in space, go through wormholes, portals, etc., go through stargates. We are dealing with ETs that are doing all of these things as well. So some of those ETs are friendly and some of them are not. And they're not demons. Demons don't have bodies, okay? These ETs are actually races of beings, just like humanity. Humanity is a hybrid race. These other beings are also hybrids in many cases, if not all. So that means they may be a combination of humanoid and reptilian, a certain kind of reptilian. They may be positive or they may be negative towards humanity. So when we say positive or negative, it's always from our point of view. How are they treating us? And then there's AI. And we had, last time I talked to Captain Mark Richards, who's now basically I've lost contact with. And I can explain that in a minute. But he's basically talking about the technology that has to do with going off planet, going to other solar systems, dealing with other beings, and these beings again being either on the positive side or the negative side with respect to us and our position on Earth and Earth itself. So while you bicker among yourselves as to what's true and what's not, even with the death of David Wilcock, if he indeed died, which I think he was suicided, that means he, in essence, faked his own death, most likely. And that other than that, it's a murder. So there should be a murder investigation. But the bottom line is that David Wilcock would not kill himself, and I'll explain why. But first, let me say this about Captain Mark Richards, why I've lost contact. I posted one line from a text that I had been exchanging with him on an iPad type thing that connects to the prison and that they let the prisoners use. And he basically said, we will use all force necessary to deal with Three Eye Atlas. That sentence appears to have caused a rift to where he was not supposed to say or disclose that much. Now, I have gone into depth on other videos and explained my point of view of Three Eye Atlas. I worked with David Sereda initially and Jimmy Blanchett, and basically deduced based on his evidence that he was showing me, that was the positioning of Three Eye Atlas as it went through the trajectory in the solar system on its way past Earth, behind the sun, over by Mars, and now over by Jupiter. And now it's on the sun, the opposite side of the sun. So the sun is not interfering, I guess, to some degree in what it is trying to do. And I believe it was called in by the Israelis, who are run by the Anunnaki, who I've talked about many times. And they were chosen by the Anunnaki to fulfill certain destiny. And they occupy a certain area in the Middle East that's very central in terms of the stargates. And also, that's where stargates are important because it lets in or lets out negative beings or positive beings. So visitors from other parts of the solar system and beyond come in through stargates. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with portal mechanics. We're dealing with secret space, all the secrets that they have, all the secret technology that could make our lives better. Like Elysium, that's that movie, okay, where they actually were living in a space age sort of complex, floating above the Earth. And while Earthlings were down on the surface of Earth, living in mayhem and degradation. So you have to choose what you want to do, how you want the future to be. If we do not demand the truth and use the truth when it's offered to us, such as with this sort of emerging picture, it's like follow the dots, a different dot showing up every couple weeks in the press. The press is being fed that information, they feed it to you. So then when you look at it, what does it tell you? What is it revealing? And so, as this picture begins to emerge, we are seeing what we've been involved in for all these years, what our scientists have been paid to do, why those are black projects, unacknowledged special access projects, as opposed to anything else. So, this is key to understanding where we are in our world. And so I just wanted to highlight this because as we look at these emerging dots, so to speak, and David Wilcock is the latest. So my point here is that we don't have to sit around and wait for the media to feed us information. The information is really out there. David Wilcock was working on the same technology that all these other companies and scientists are. Okay, so he fits right into the profile as being one of the qualifying scientists. He was a scientist. He wasn't simply a broadcaster. He actually was trying to make a reality out of the technology that he understood and often talked about, as a matter of fact. So it's the same thing with Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar had gone into the secret space program, been exposed to the technology, even in theory, seen the ETs, certainly seen the flights, and communicated that with John Lear and so on. He then eventually, they tried to fire him and all these different things, and then they rehired him. A lot of people don't know this. John Lear told me this, that he was actually towards much later years, more recent years, rehired. So, what they do with these scientists, even like Richard Allen Miller, the physicist that I often interview, same thing. One minute he's gone out and he's out to pasture, and the next minute he's working for them again. So, this is going on all over the planet, and this secret space program or programs are actually intertwined with our everyday life in terms of, but also being black projects. So some of these people have a family life that they go home to at night, but in the daytime, they're involved in above top secret projects. And when it gets serious enough, they even take them offline. Take them into the black projects off planet, underground bases, undersea bases, and so on and so forth. Uh, some people have been going back and forth their whole lives, and they have been witnessing that humanity isn't making much progress. Okay, we're using the same airplane travel that we always have. It's ludicrous, although now those planes are actually using free energy mixed with some kind of, I guess, other fuel to propel themselves through the skies because they don't have the money to pay for, regular fuel. So, but people don't know this. They don't know that planes are arriving much sooner than they thought they would as a result of this concoction. So, when you're in the dark, if you accept the reality around you as being the real reality, which is a lot of people do, even people who should know better, people that are, sort of what I would call in the MAGA movement or involved in wanting to change the world and so on, they still rely on the government to tell them what's true and what's not. But the government is always lying to you. The government and those who are on the negative side of the secret space program have a vested interest in keeping you stupid so that you don't rebel, so that you don't understand what's really going on, so that you're in denial about the fact that we have contact with other species going out into outer space. The flat earth thing is a psyop. It's a psyop to keep you limited And it's really taken off. I mean, people are just really into that. But they don't realize that what they're doing is limiting their understanding, their deeper understanding of 4D, 5D, and so on. Now, I just want to talk about David briefly here because David was dedicated to the idea of ascension. That's what his books were all about. So he fully and completely dedicated his life to talking about ascension. And that obviously was his goal, his life's goal. So he would not kill himself because that would stop his ability to ascend. Okay, it would sort of send him down a few rungs in terms of your earth trajectory. And so you have to understand how David thought about these things to really understand how he had looked at the secret space program, looked at what he was doing, which is exactly what they are doing, and those scientists in particular, looked at the death threats that he was getting, and then looked at the way these scientists were slowly but systematically seemingly being eliminated. And I'm sure that that scared him, and he decided that he needed to get out of surface earth so that he could make more progress in an underground project, a black project as we call it. And he was having some trouble with his recent aerospace ex company, the company that he was partner in, I think, and Savrati, I think it's called, aerospace. Apparently they have issues, litigation, any kind of free energy company, if they can be bogged down by litigation by the deep state. You can understand you're going to be heavily targeted if you try to start a company and compete with things like Boeing, Lockheed, the usual suspects, okay, Bechtel, because they will be trying to garner all the contracts and keep their leading edge. So any new upstart is going to have trouble. It's just a given. And sure enough, Savrati has apparently had some trouble. Now, there's another phenomena that goes on with secret space and free energy, whatever these particular alternative energy systems are that they're working with, fusion, plasma, etc. Um, the nature of it is that it's actually technology that opens portals. What happens when you open portals? Beings come in, beings that may or may not be positive, even, angels and demons, if you want to say, who don't have bodies but can inhabit human bodies and take them over. So, and David, I believe, was dealing with gray aliens a lot. That's what I saw when I interviewed him. Uh, and I'm sensitive to seeing things like that. So, for what it's worth, he was being harassed on more than one level. He was being harassed on the, physical level, the everyday level, with everyday threats from humans as well as non-humans, ETs. And it's hard to say how he would have staged the death. How could that be done? There's one person out there who has actually said that there were no witnesses to him holding a gun to his head, that he came out of the house, was waving a gun, supposedly then shot himself. But initially they said there were police around the area when he did this, that there were eyewitnesses. But now someone is coming out and saying there weren't eyewitnesses, so that a body could be taken and replaced, a scene, a murder scene or a self, a suicide could be staged, and there was no one except at the very end when they came upon the site. So we're not necessarily getting the straight story from the Boulder Police Department. And so I think that this is just a developing story. As far as I'm concerned, knowing David the way I did, and I knew him very, very well for many years, I split from him when he got involved with the Corey Good stuff. And I'm not going into why that is, but that's what happened. So David continued to pursue that line of investigation. And at that point, I lost touch. So I just want to say that if you know David, if you know that Ascension was his whole goal in life, he was not going to put himself in that position. The other thing is that he was also completely obsessed with his legacy. I know that he was very proud of his books. He's very proud of all the work that he did, and he did wonderful work. He was quite brilliant. And he would be very upset if that legacy was to be distorted by a suicide, by him, because a suicide shows that you had doubts in yourself and your work. That's not the kind of image he would want to leave behind. I know David. Okay. So he definitely would have had to see the writing on the wall, look at the playing field, and decide he needed to stage his his suicide. Now, there are sort of indicators that he was setting the system up to accept that he would be sort of crazy enough to commit suicide. It was an act, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So he knew exactly what he was doing. I have a psychic friend who's actually quite tried and true. She has a very good psychic record. And she basically said the person who called 911 was not David. That's what she's getting. I got that he is definitely not dead, that he did not commit suicide. So take it for what it's worth, but you can investigate further, like all of us will be doing in the near future, I'm sure. But it's important to realize that if you just leave it here, you're not going to understand what is really going on here. This war for disclosure, as I call it, because this is going to continue. And you're going to get positive stuff happening, and then you're going to get negative stuff happening. And because of the way the White Hats have chosen to operate, we don't always know what side they're on because they actually, in some cases, are trying to impede any progress that we might make as a civilization because they tend to hold humanity in the same light that the dark side does, which is that we are not equal to the task and that we are, that humans are not ready. They think they can play God and tell you who's ready and not who's not for the information, for the dissemination of truth. Now, I think that's gradually changing in their methodology and in their approach at this time. I believe that they can't stop it. That's actually what's happening. These So the sun is involved in stimulating the Schumann resonance. You may be seeing those reports that come through on X showing daily the Schumann resonance lately has just been off the charts. When the Schumann resonance is off the charts, we are given light, which is truth and knowledge, coming through the sun. It's actually brightening our world and our consciousness. And it's kind of like you could think of it, it's like food. They often have said, you can stare at the sun and get wiser because the sun is bringing in intelligence. Light is intelligence. It's not the same thing. So understanding that we're in a threshold now and we're going to make it through this. But it's very important that people don't buy into the party line. Don't buy into that this is a suicide by someone who didn't believe in suicide. That's a fact. he did not believe in suicide. So understanding that he had big plans for the future, and I've actually had dreams of the future in which he was successful at bringing his technology to the fore. So he was a very troubled, conflicted perhaps, but he had certain very strong, I guess you might say, foundation in what he wanted to accomplish here on Earth. And I don't think that he would have sat around and allowed himself to devolve to the point where he would commit suicide. So I think it's if you understand the things that he held highest, which is, light, knowledge, free energy, but especially ascension, then you would know that this person, regardless of the pressures, is going to survive them. And that somehow either his so-called suicide was orchestrated against his will or he was part of it and faked his death. So I just wanted to say all that. And I think I'm covering most. Oh, I know. So there's one other caveat that I wanted to talk about. Having worked in Hollywood for 20 years, David also worked in various capacities, was exposed to Hollywood, lived in LA for quite a long number of years. And it's known in Hollywood that you can decide, a star can make a phone call. It's just a phone call. And you can get a team to come and fake your death. And I believe this has been done by countless celebrities. So not all the celebrities that you have seen that have been suicided, so to speak, are actually dead. They are, fake setups because that particular person, Jim Morrison is a great example, was burnt out on being, in essence, that celebrity and wanted to disappear from the public eye. So he would need a team to basically come in and stage his death. JFK Jr. is the same thing. He was about to hire a journalist who was going to release on George magazine the real killer of his father. This is when they had to stage his death because he needed to be protected because they would, the dark side was going to come after him. And I think Hillary even told him to his face at that famous luncheon, if you remember, that they were going to kill him. So the Secret Service that surrounded him had no choice but to stage his death and the death of Carolyn, of course, and his sister, Caroline. So understanding that when this happens, when you you have a faked death, it allows you to have, to become another person, to, you might have to wear a disguise out in society, but for example, JFK Jr., is very good at that. And he was already proven to be a good actor and able to deceive the press, even when he was known and he was operational in normal society. Since then, he's made an art of it. We have many pictures of the various individuals that he's played, the bald Secret Service agent. There are various ones. 107, of course, I've talked about, and that's who he mostly is, wearing a huge disguise, top to bottom, head to toe. But this has gone on now for, if you think of, I think that the supposed death was 1999. So since 1999, okay, let's just say 26 or 27 years, we're talking about hiding to protect his family. I don't think that is really the way to live. And I also think that his soul has been sort of tied up in, it's like being bound and gagged for your whole life. So I look forward to when he can get over this and stop hiding and is able to come forward and be who he really is, as we know. And I have plenty of verification of this, lots and lots of verification of this. So I just think that people need to know presidents have doubles. The President Trump you're seeing at Mar-a-Lago, in most cases, is 5'8", slightly pudgy, and that's not President Trump. President Trump is 6'3", and I think he's spending most of his time, I have no idea for sure, but probably in places like NORAD. So understanding that we are seeing, they call it a movie, but it's affecting your life. Your decisions at this time are still your life decisions, okay? And this time's precious for you, just as it is to David Wilcock, as he said. So I suggest that you try to see through even the programming that you're getting, regardless of who's giving it to you. It's not a movie, it's your life. And so you have to decide what to do with it and how much truth you want to see and how much truth you want to share, because the truth indeed shall set us free. And those are some of the most powerful words ever written, and they're absolutely true. Anyway, thank you for watching, and have a good day and a good life.